The third principle of this chapter is rational people think at the margin. Rational, we already get this word defined in the previous video when we talk about rational choice, right? We said being rational means when you make your decision, you're relying upon the available resources and pick the best one for your own interest. Okay, and what do we mean by at the margin? Now, this word margin in English, it means the border or edge of something. Now, rational people think at the margin. In economics, this means pretend we stand on the edge of a cliff. If we have to move forward, are you going to take a big step forward? Definitely no, right? If we have to move forward, we're going to take a teeny tiny step forward. That's exactly what this principle is about. So it says when we make economic decisions, we should make small decisions. We should make incremental decisions. Try our best to avoid making big decisions. Because if you're making big ones, you will not be able to maximize your profit. Okay? You're making mistakes. Now, here, let's use a numerical example to show you what exactly we're talking about here. Okay? Now, let's use a General Motors hiring decision as an example. Okay, so suppose the automaker is expanding. It tries to produce more cars by hiring more auto workers. Okay, so when they put the job ad out, they received, suppose, 3 applications, okay, from 3 different workers. So workers number 1, the first one, the second one, and the third one. Okay, and all 3 of them ask the same salary. Okay, so salary, let's say $40 per hour. Okay, because in reality we have the full-time and part-time. So when we look at the salary or even the benefit, we look at dollars per hour. Okay, so that way we don't have to distinguish the part-time from the full-time. Now, as we said, they ask the same salary per hour. Okay, $40. Another way you could understand these, the same $40 among the 3 workers is we basically assume that these workers are identical in every possible way. So if you look at their education, race, experience, like number of years working as a auto workers, okay, and the position they apply for, so are exactly the same. That's why they get the same pay per hour. Okay. Now let's look at how much revenue they can bring to the company. Okay, or each of them could bring to the company. Okay, so by hiring the first worker, we find that he or she can produce $60 per hour for GM. In other words, after she finished her job and we put whatever she produced on the market, it's worth $60. Okay. Now for the second worker, this number is $45 per hour. Okay. The third worker, it becomes $30 per hour. Now, I guess here you may have a big question mark in your mind. You know, if we're assuming that these 3 workers are identical, why they bring us the different amount of revenue, okay, or bring the different amount of revenue to GM? Okay. Now here, we actually create the numbers this way intentionally because there's a very important economic principle. It's called law of diminishing returns to labor. Now we will check out these later, okay? But here I just want to give you the idea. The idea is actually pretty simple, okay? Simple but powerful. What we're trying to say here is you find that, by hiring more and more workers, the amount of the dollar amount each additional worker can bring to the company is decreasing, right? So the company makes less and less by hiring more and more workers. How so? Now, if you imagine that, within this workplace, the factory, there's a assembly line, okay, on the ground. Now, when we hire the first worker, he or she could choose wherever he or she wants to work. There's nobody else getting his or her way, right? But when we start adding the second worker, the third worker, probably all the way to the 100 workers, 500 workers, you would find that the whole place is packed, it's crowded, right? So if you want to even move, not to mention produce, but if you just want to move, you always find somebody is in your way, okay? So that's exactly what we mean by diminishing returns to labor, or law of diminishing returns. Okay, so if we hold one factor, in this case assembly line, constant, and keep adding the other factors, you would find the productivity of the other factor is decreased. Excuse me, the productivity of the other factor is decreasing. Okay, now here, if we look at how much money the company actually make or profit from hiring these workers, you would find that the first by hiring the first workers, the company makes $20, right? 60 minus 40. By hiring the second workers, the company makes 45 minus 40, $5. By hiring the third worker, the company does not make any money. Actually, it loses $10 if we use 30 minus 40, right? So it's minus $10. Now here, can you tell me how many workers GM should hire? Okay, I would strongly suggest you to pause the video and think about this. Now, when you focus on the profit column, you would find it's pretty easy, right? It definitely should hire the first two workers and not the third one, right? It's pretty obvious. However, in reality, many people under many different circumstances, they did not really break down this way. They always want to look at the total or the average and trying to make big decisions. Now, for example, here, if we look at the three workers as a group, okay, three workers as a group, we find that the total salary the three workers ask is $120 per hour, right? You just add them up. Now, how much money the company, how much money this group of workers can bring to the company? Again, if you add them up, you find that it's $135 per hour, right? So you tend to say that, well, that's great because, the revenue outweighs the cost, right? And so the company should be able to make $15 profit. We should hire the whole group, all three of them. But again, if you go back and look at, when we break them down and look at one by one, we said that the company should only hire the first 2 workers, and it will be able to make the total profit of $25 instead of $15, right? If you use 20 plus 5, okay? So that's what we mean by think at the margin, okay? You do this one by one, incrementally, okay? And do not group them, or do not try to find the average, okay? Because if you do the average, you'll find the same thing. So the average salary of these 3 workers is going to be $40 per hour, okay? The average revenue they can bring to the company is $45 per hour. So you use 135 divided by 3, okay? And then you would find that average profit of hiring these workers is going to be $5. So you would tend to say, let's go ahead and hire all 3 of them. But again, as we said, these are wrong, okay? These are not the best decisions we could make, okay? Once again, rational people think at the margin, okay? Make small decisions, teeny tiny decisions, okay? This is also called marginal analysis, okay? It's pretty powerful, okay? Marginal analysis, right? You can find more examples about these later on the problem set, or if you check out the textbook, all right?